Welcome to The Explainer. Look, today we're tackling a feeling that is, well, universally recognized and, let's be honest, incredibly painful. You know the exact moment I'm talking about, right? You've got this massive, super important task staring you right in the face, but instead of doing it, you just find yourself endlessly scrolling the internet, totally paralyzed by this invisible force. It's so frustrating. But here's the wild part. It turns out literally everything we think we know about putting things off is actually completely backwards. Okay, so let's dive right into this by fundamentally reframing the issue right off the bat. Procrastination is not a time management failure. Nope. As the author Mark Manson so perfectly puts it, every problem of inaction is ultimately a problem of emotion. You don't put things off because you don't know what to do. You put them off because of a deeply ingrained bodily and emotional response. Basically, you're just trying to avoid a bad feeling. Which brings us to Section 1, the instant gratification monkey. To really understand this, the writer Tim Urban came up with this absolutely brilliant metaphor for the tug-of-war happening inside your head right now. On one side, you've got the rational decision maker. This is the part of you that visualizes the future, sees the big picture, makes those long-term plans. But on the other side is the instant gratification monkey. And this monkey, it lives entirely in the present moment. It only cares about what's easy and what's fun, and it absolutely loves to hijack the wheel so you can watch, a 3-hour YouTube deep dive of Justin Bieber's mom instead of working. The real problem here is that when the monkey inevitably wins, you end up in a place Tim Urban calls the dark playground. And if you've been there, you know it's awful. It's this weird state of unearned leisure. You aren't actually getting any work done, but you aren't enjoying your free time either, right? Your procrastination isn't even fun because the whole shebang is just completely overshadowed by stress, guilt, dread, and self-hatred. Let's look at why that happens in Section 2, fear, stress, and your brain. So why exactly does our brain just let the monkey take over? Well, it actually comes down to hard neuroscience, specifically this little part of your brain called the amygdala. This is your brain's threat detection center. When you think about starting a really difficult project, your amygdala literally perceives it as a physical threat. We're talking like a literal bear attack. It triggers this massive stress-induced panic response that completely overpowers your logical prefrontal cortex. So you end up avoiding the threat by just avoiding the work entirely. And honestly, this brings us to a really crucial point. We have to debunk the laziness myth once and for all. Laziness is just general apathy. You just literally don't care. Procrastination is the exact opposite. It's actually driven by caring way too much. You put things off because you have a super high fear of failure, and your standards are so high that just starting feels incredibly threatening. You aren't lazy. You're just struggling to regulate all those negative emotions. Moving right along to Section 3, the dopamine deficit. Okay, so if we look at the neurochemical side of the equation, your brain has this built-in motivation engine called the nucleus accumbens, and it runs on dopamine. But here's the thing. Dopamine isn't actually about pleasure like most people think. It's the wanting chemical. It spikes when you anticipate a reward. Nowadays, hyperstimulating apps totally hijack this system, actually lowering your dopamine receptors so doing normal work feels basically impossible. And as Dr. Tracy Marks points out, this is especially tough for folks with ADHD, whose brains face a natural shortage of the transport proteins needed to signal that motivation. It's literally a supply chain issue in the brain. Think of it like this. Low-effort activities give you a massive artificial dopamine spike. That creates a tolerance and leaves you feeling completely unfulfilled. On the flip side, high-effort tasks give you low immediate dopamine, but they build true, lasting satisfaction over time. So how do we fix this? Well, neuroscientists highly recommend a dopamine detox. This means temporarily stripping away those hyperstimulating apps and junk food for about 7 to 14 days. You're basically turning down the artificial stimulation dial so your brain can recalibrate and actually begin to enjoy the satisfaction of doing hard work again. Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, hacking your environment and brain. Now that we know exactly why we get stuck, we have to admit something. Relying on raw willpower is a total losing game. Willpower is finite. Instead, we have to trick the brain. Psychiatrist Dr. Tracy Marks identifies 4 vital factors that drive our motivation: interest, urgency, challenge, and novelty. If you find yourself just staring blankly at a boring, understimulating task, you literally have to artificially inject these elements into it to kickstart your brain's reward pathway. And one of the absolutely best, most practical ways to manufacture that urgency and challenge is the classic Pomodoro technique. It's super simple. You work for 25 minutes, then you take a 5-minute break.
After a few cycles of that, you take a longer break. By literally racing against a physical timer, you turn this endless, super intimidating project into a fast-paced, time-limited game. It's a total hack to bypass the brain's threat response. But listen, you have to remember that your environment is far and away the single biggest factor in behavior change. You absolutely must manicure your surroundings to make taking action inevitable. Clear the junk food out of the kitchen, move your alarm clock all the way across the bedroom, temporarily delete those distracting apps. You can even use an awesome technique called body doubling, which is just working alongside a super focused friend or even putting on a YouTube study video to leverage a little positive social pressure and keep you locked in.
All right, Section 5, the do something principle. Now, for those moments when you are just completely paralyzed by overthinking, even if your environment is absolutely perfect, Mark Manson shares this amazing story. A fan of his named Jiwon was totally paralyzed for 11 straight months trying to start a business. Just stuck. To break the overthinking loop, Manson essentially forced her to push a ridiculously heavy workout sled until she was physically exhausted, just to get her to agree on a basic business plan. By making the physical pain of doing nothing greater than the emotional pain of taking action, she finally started. And that one tiny start caused a massive chain reaction, eventually leading her to literally fly out to Korea to source artisan ceramics. Wild, right? So the crucial takeaway here, and honestly, this is probably the most important concept in this entire explainer, is the do something principle. You cannot sit around and wait to feel motivated. Action is not the result of motivation. It is actually the cause of it. You have to act first, no matter how small that action is, and the motivation will naturally follow. Productivity expert Oliver Burkeman offers some truly brilliant strategies to just lower that barrier to entry. For example, use the 2-minute rule. Pick one tiny thing and just do it right now. Or set a quantity goal instead of a quality goal. Give yourself permission to write just one terrible paragraph, knowing you can edit it later. Except that not making a decision is, well, still a decision, and it comes with consequences. And above all, practice self-compassion. Interestingly enough, forgiving yourself for procrastinating actually reduces the negative emotions that made you avoid the work in the first place.
Finally, let's look at Section 6, the long game.
As we wrap up this explainer, we really have to talk about the absolute most dangerous form of procrastination, and that's the kind that has absolutely no deadlines. Remember our cast of characters from earlier? The only thing that actually scares the instant gratification monkey is the panic monster. But here's the catch. The panic monster only wakes up for imminent, immediate deadlines, like a massive school paper due tomorrow. The real tragedy is that he sleeps right through the things that matter the absolute most in life. Stuff like starting that dream business, getting your health in order, or finally leaving a toxic relationship. Because without those hard deadlines, procrastination can just extend outward, literally forever. Which brings us to this really stark number right here, 4,680. That is the total number of weeks you get in a 90-year life. When you actually map that out on a calendar, it is shocking how few boxes there really are. Our time here is completely finite, you guys, and the monkey's absolute sneakiest trick is convincing you that you just have this endless, unlimited supply of tomorrows. You don't. So I want to end this explainer with a really provocative question for you to chew on. What are you really procrastinating on? Is it your health? A big career leap? Maybe a difficult conversation you've been avoiding? Please, don't wait for the panic monster to wake up, because for the most important things in life, he never will. I challenge you to close this explainer right now. Use the tools we just talked about. Pick the absolutely smallest possible action and just do something. The clock is ticking.